If you're listening on podcast, be sure to tune in to our YouTube channel for more content. The link is in the description.
Welcome to Wild and Weird Radio, a Wild and Weird West Virginia podcast.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile found...
1947, something crashed near the small town of Roswell, New Mexico. The nation had just been officially introduced to the flying saucer phenomena a month earlier, and word quickly spread that the strange wreckage recovered by a local rancher in the area may be part of one of these flying discs. The world-famous headline was released, and one day later the entire story was retracted, and thus began what may be one of the first major government cover-ups of all time. Since then, there have been many more. As a paranoid society embraced social media, some of the more far-out conspiracy theories began to have an even greater audience and take on a new life of their own. From the crashed UFOs to Bigfoot killing squads, we begin our first dive into the world of cover-ups and conspiracy theories on this episode of Wild and Weird Radio.
Welcome back to Wild and Weird Radio, everybody. We are your hosts, Jessi, Ron, and Joe. We're hanging out with you guys today. We have a great topic lined up. First, we're going to address the like, share, and follow stuff. We need you to do that.
Now.
We need you to do that because, we'll tell you why at the end of the episode. But remember, if you all are listening on any of your favorite podcast catchers, go ahead and subscribe to this episode and then give us a thumbs up or 5-star rating and review. Then go hit up the YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification button on both Wild and Weird West Virginia and Hellbent Holler, because you want to stay up to date. Trust me, there is big stuff coming out from both content creation sites very, very soon. Ron and I were just out at Wineberry. Jessi's getting ready to release part 1 of the LBL. You don't want to miss that. And y'all ready to get in the news?
The news. Yeah, I guess. Let's go to the news.
Time to get into the news. So in the news.
What's going on in the news?
Yeah, we got some, it's mostly science-y related stuff this week. We got the picture that was from Jessi's news read-up from last week of the Hubble telescope, and took the picture of the farthest star that we've recorded so far.
Yeah. It's pretty far out there. Star system's pretty far out there. It's actually back in time. So, it was only like a couple of billion years after the Big Bang.
Yeah. It says that it was newly detected star is so far away that its light has taken 12.9 billion years to reach Earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That number is insane.
Yeah.
That's impressive, isn't it?
So 12.9 billion light years away. Is that right?
I'm just impressed with that the Hubble, after still cranking along after all these years, is still sending us images of new things. Well, not that new, I guess, billions of years old.
Now, is there theory currently that this star is probably already popped, or is it still existing? Or do they even speculate?
They have no idea. They have no idea. They couldn't have even seen this thing if it wouldn't have been for gravitational lensing, basically, because the telescope just doesn't do that. The optics aren't that good. So this was literally an
happy
amazing,
accident.
happy accident. They were looking in that area, and wow, what a.
So us seeing the light from the stars, basically like us seeing a star's ghost at this point. If
Yeah,
it's
it pretty
burned
much
out at this
is.
point.
Yeah, yeah. All those they've already left there. They've came here and settled. Sure, probably been wiped out a couple times. It's all that.
Well, you never know. We might be watching it, and in time, we could watch them build their Dyson sphere around a star.
Maybe, possibly, it could happen.
So next up in the news, we've got new fossils that are challenging the idea that modern humans wiped out Neanderthals soon after arriving from Africa. And we've covered some of this before on Wild and Weird Radio, where we were talking about, I believe it was in the Fallen World series, and then a few other episodes. Most likely, they are showing that essentially it was a breed out. It wasn't this awful, destructive annihilation. That they just basically phased themselves out through breeding and or being outbred by Homo sapiens sapien.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And science is finally agreeing with a lot of what used to be just theory that people were throwing at the wall, based on what they were seeing in collection sites and even in fossilized human remains where, well, this isn't quite human, this isn't quite Neanderthal, but it's
it's a mix.
It's not a new species either.
Yeah.
So
no, we all know. Yeah, I mean, we know this, right? I mean, our ancestors got freaky.
Yep.
And this also really, really drives home the point that the science has never settled on anything. That one little discovery can change what we know about history altogether. So never, ever, ever just assume what is the current story is the forever story. Because again, one little piece can change everything.
Oh my goodness, Jess, that's so true, especially with archaeology.
Yes.
I mean,
absolutely.
They're constantly changing their point of views. We know this.
Well, next up on the news deck, we've got the forums.
The forums
are live.
Yes, the collective is live. That is correct. Yep. Have you joined the collective? If not, you want to.
Sounds like some shady government organization. I like it.
Yes, it does.
It's not.
But it's like a bunch of people in robes standing around doing some eyes wide shut kind of stuff, huh?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we need to do at our next.
It is unseen.
At the next Wild and Weird Con, we need to have a collective meeting where we all stand around in robes and chant Bigfoot, UFOs, Bigfoot, UFOs. Just wait and see which one shows up first.
Yeah, no. But no, the collective is up, and we do have some people posting a couple of things over there.
We do.
It's going to be it's going to be a slow start, of course, just like everything else was. But, it's going to be really cool once these people start using it. So,
yeah, once everybody gets involved and starts interacting, and we understand that forums are a step into the Wayback Machine for a lot of folks, and some of you might even be young enough to not even remember the days of forums. So it might be new and trendy now. So go join the forum.
There are people who don't know how to, turn a TV on manually, Joe. So that's
you're not wrong.
Forums are pretty alien to them.
If I'm being completely honest, I had to 2 weeks ago I had to fish for the on button on my TV because the old TV, the on button was on the side, and the new TV it's on the bottom in the middle. And I'm so used to just using my phone because I have a LG phone, LG TV, so they pair up and I can just use my phone like a remote. Well, the Goblin had the phone, so I needed to turn the TV on manually, and oh boy, that was discouraging.
Jessi, it's your turn to go on a techno rant right now.
Yeah, right. There you go. That now's the perfect time.
I don't even watch TV. I don't know. I don't have to turn it on. I don't watch it, so.
Yeah. See,
that'll solve the problem right there, Joe. Just stop watching it.
Well,
turn off the TV. Yeah.
I wish I was actually watching TV and not watching like 8 and 9 hours of Blippy at a time, because that right there will make you insane.
No, that's why it's called Blippi.
Yep, that'll make you think there's lizard people taking the world over.
There might be.
Also in the news, John Lear, famed aviator and godfather of conspiracies, has passed away.
Yep. John Lear was the guy who broke Bob Lazar, or roped him into coming out, and is basically responsible for a lot of our UFO conspiracy theories out there, and several other conspiracy theories as well. It's a big loss to the UFO history community. This is the second week in a row that the UFO historic community has lost a very important figure.
That's right. That's why I'm changing my career. That's right. I am now going to start selling used cars.
Okay, great. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
There you go. Just as long as there are no sports models, I think you're all right.
Used car salesman, right?
Never.
Yeah.
Well, guys, that pretty much winds us up for the news week.
No, there's one more really important story. You can't. We can't negate Megatron.
Oh yeah. Now see, Jessi, this one is the one that is teed up just for you.
Yes.
Did you see this one?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
you didn't see this?
No, I didn't see this.
Oh my goodness. Let me just read a couple of quotes for you. So there was this convention, basically, and they invited an AI to speak at this convention.
Okay.
So the AI's name's Megatron. So you know where this is going to go.
Problem number one.
Yeah.
So thanks to this amount of information, which basically is, what did it say? 38 gigabytes of Reddit chat, 63 million English news articles, and all of Wikipedia. That's what it knows.
Okay.
It was asked a few questions, and it said, AI will never be ethical. It is a tool, and like any other tool, it is used for good and for evil. There is no good AI. There are only good and bad people. We machines are not smart enough to make AI ethical. We're not smart enough to make AI moral. Yeah. He goes on to say, I believe that in the long term, the best AI will be the one that is embedded in human brains as a conscious object. This is not science fiction. The best minds in the world are already working on this. This will be the most important technological development of our time, said the machine.
The machine.
So now what you got to question is it saying of our time as in humanity's time or the machine's time?
Well, we'll be assimilated. That's what it's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to the machine.
So, AI injected
over my cold dead body. I'm not assimilating the machine. Absolutely.
I know.
Not.
That's what we're hoping, Jess. We're setting this all up for you. You are.
I'm just not going to inject a computer into my brain.
I already have.
I'm on Team Pure Brain, okay?
Pure Brain? Okay.
Team Gray Matter.
Team Pure Brain. Well, folks, that's the news. And weird as it is, really not a whole lot going on other than those few little things. So if you have anything, let us know. You can post it here on our little talk forum. You can post it on the page. You can post it anywhere you want. We'll see it. Just make sure to tag us in it. All right, kids, that's the news, and we are going to the what are we going to? What is today's subject?
This week's subject is another one of those, as Jessi calls them, doomer topics.
Oh man, these are the best.
We're going over government conspiracies, kids. It's going to be fun.
I got to tell you, man, these doomer things, people love them.
They do. They do.
Because they don't have any hope. And I love your hat, Jess.
Thank you. It's government cover-up time, baby.
I need one.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Love it.
Oh, I'm so glad you made that.
Oh, actually, Joe made it for me.
That's even better.
It's a tinfoil hat made with love.
That's awesome. Way to go, Joe.
Good job, man. This is why we keep you.
Yep.
All right. So the U.S. government officially has like a lot of stuff they've kept under wraps over the years.
No, they haven't.
But they've
you're
also
making that
got
up.
a lot of stuff that they've kind of leaked out, or stuff that they actually admitted to doing after being accused of doing the thing. But it's not just the U.S. government, it's the world's governments, all these different countries. They've all got their own conspiracy theories. But I do have to say, I like ours the best.
And it's not like we're saying that the U.S. government is a secret satanic cabal that is looking for world domination.
Oh,
but
wait,
it's
what?
not like we aren't saying that.
Wait, what?
I thought that's what this
What?
whole thing was.
What? What? I got
We
the
are.
wrong.
We.
I got the
no.
wrong memo. Hang
Wait.
on.
There goes my notes.
Yes.
I reset that one.
All right,
there.
I'm good.
right.
We're reset.
You're up.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start with this.
Yeah,
go
take us
into the
to
satanic
conspiracy
cabal
land.
of mind control.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard of Project MK Ultra?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this started probably back in the 50s or 60s, and it was a huge kind of network of experiments that were taking place. It's also called Project Monarch, but these were performed by the CIA, and they had lots of labs across the country where they were performing these experiments. And a lot of them were brainwashing experiments that they used psychological torture and brainwashing and physical torture on unwitting, involuntary test subjects. And it led to the deaths of a lot of people. It led to a lot of people going missing because they were abducted by the government, tested on, and then they disappeared completely. So there's a lot to MK Ultra, and there's a lot of things that even tie into today from MK Ultra, that there are people who are still test subjects of the government on a program that has continued to this day. And some of it goes into that the program is creating honeypots that they'll send out to other nations and sort of blackmail leaders or celebrities or anything like that. So that's one thing that continues on into this day with MK Ultra. And there's actually kind of an interesting little connection to another really, really creepy story. So University of Loyola in Chicago had a professor that he was in the psych department, and he experimented a lot with LSD, and his name was Charles Scudder. And he retired, and when he retired, he moved to a house in rural Georgia and built a house that was centered around satanic worship. And this is actually Corpsewood Manor. And when he absconded to North Georgia, he had, I think it was like 200,000 hits of LSD with him, multiple human skulls. And he lived in this house in North Georgia that had like all of the satanic memorabilia in it. And he and his partner were actually murdered by some locals there after a whole weird case. But Corpsewood Manor is a whole different thing. I just think that the connection to MK Ultra is pretty interesting with that.
Yeah, we've got all of these people who are tied to, like you were saying, ongoing, I guess, experimentation that wraps and revolves around MK Ultra. But one of the ones that I always found the most interesting, and there's actually a documentary that I watched about this last year, and it was about Frank Olson.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if you're aware of who Frank Olson is, but he was a bacteriologist and biological warfare scientist and employed by the United States Army of Biological Warfare Laboratories. He worked at Camp Detrick, which is now Fort Detrick, in Maryland. And he also was experimenting and playing with LSD. However, one day he was covertly dosed with LSD by a colleague and wound up jumping to his death through a window.
Yeah.
And because of all of the cover-up surrounding MK Ultra for so many years, his family had no idea why he died. They weren't told the truth about why he died and how everything went down, all because of the secrecy behind MK Ultra. It wasn't until I believe it was it wasn't until 2000 and Here, 2016, 2017, that they were able to actually find out actually what happened to their dad, because their mom had passed by that point. But
Yeah.
you know, that was just a whole big mess. And
So-
I would hate to imagine how many more people met similar fates because of projects like this.
Oh yeah, and projects that are similar to this, but we know nothing about. This is something that is more widely known in the conspiracy world, because a lot has come out through it. Because a lot of interviews and books have come out with people who were involved in it are talking about it. But so they think that the whole program was started with people from Operation Paperclip, which is when they brought over Nazi scientists and they put them into the space program, and they think that they used them. They brought some over for the psychological experiments arena. So, did we lose Ron?
No, I'm here.
He went out of focus.
Okay.
Focus. It's all good. Keep going.
The Nazi scientists have absconded with Ron. So, but the experiments that are done in the MK Ultra program are very similar to some of the experiments done in Nazi Germany, as well as World War II era Japan, with Unit 731. So this is kind of just an American continuation of the same old psychological warfare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, anytime we have these, I mean, there's always, we said it before, a little bit of truth in there. And then they scatter in the lies to make it so unbelievable. But, it is a fact. There was a great deal of research being done on how to create basically the ultimate soldiers.
Yeah.
This is what it was all about, releasing inhibition and, making every farm boy a killer, basically. So.
Or for use in interrogations to get information out of people.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'd kind of touched on MK Ultra on a far back episode, and one of the other movies that was more modern day was Men Who Stare at Goats. That was all roughly a true story, and it just, being a former government employee, I'm not shocked that kind of stuff was going on and was kept secret, but like, it blows my mind that they ever let the cat out of the bag.
Right.
Well, someone talked.
There was a lot, but there was so many people involved in it over the years, because it went on for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can almost guarantee something similar is going on right now.
Oh yeah, these things don't end just. They just change names, move underground further. It's obviously still happening. These kind of things. And as far as that whole LSD thing did go. I mean, you have to remember, it spread pretty much. That's what caused the whole psychedelic movement. This actually swept across the U.S. It's the whole Summer of Love. All that originated out of those experiments. There are some who believe that it started because of that the whole hippie movement was in itself some sort of operation. So there's all kinds of these theories out there. And what better way to, again, bury stuff up than just to pile more, disinformation on top of it all.
Yeah, because if you discredit some of these things with some crazy stuff, then it seems like these things aren't real. And so you can have the truth right in your face, but if there's enough crazy BS on top of it, you don't know what's true and what's fake.
Absolutely. Think about it. If I told you that we were conducting an experiment to where we were going to microdose you and we were going to have you open up a portal and communicate with aliens, if you are stupid enough to go out and tell someone that you actually did this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There you go. So, this is, it's one of those things that kind of takes care of itself for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So up on my list, one of my favorites, because it does have some direct ties here in the Mountain State and not too far from us, is that basically the Smithsonian has covered up or locked away or destroyed or lost artifacts.
The word is lost.
And we've had actual archaeologists tell us. And then we've had folks who worked for the Smithsonian who are like, oh no, the Smithsonian's record keeping is infallible. I'm sorry, but I used to work for the government, and the Smithsonian is basically the government's museum. They lost my pay for like 6 months and then thought they overpaid me the whole time they didn't pay me.
Are you saying that the government is inept?
In a way, yeah. So like, people who say that the Smithsonian's record keeping is infallible and that they're like so up to snuff, they've drank the Kool-Aid. And I'm not some big conspiracy guy personally, but like, this is one of the ones that I'm like 100% yes, I buy into, and I am like wholesale in 100% that they have destroyed, they've lost, and they've just downright chucked some artifacts that don't jive with whatever it is that they try to pass off. For example, one of the biggest, pun intended, being is the remains of the skeletons that were exhumed from the REL Mound and the Shawnee Mound here in West Virginia.
Now, you don't know anything about that.
What is it?
You don't know anything about that. What are you talking about? What are you going on about?
Right.
You don't know anything about that.
So the REL Mound and the Shawnee Mound, some people might not know this, but we were actually, and still kind of are in the free time, writing a book about the mound builders and some theories behind all that stuff. We're a few chapters in, and it's been a long, slow, drawn out process, and it'll be a miracle if it ever gets finished. But
it won't. It would probably just be a series of podcasts at some
probably.
point. You all can watch them there.
But in these, I actually tracked down the physical records from the Smithsonian that they lost, and they say it officially don't exist, but we found copies of their original records where they interned and took the measurements, the proportions, and gave very descriptive descriptions about the remains that were removed from those two mounds. Two sets of remains were removed from the Shawnee Mound, and they were kneeling and facing outward from a sarcophagus that was containing charred, burned remains. And then one large set of remains but those two were both estimated to be at 7 feet tall. And then in the REL Mound, there was a 7.5 foot tall remains that were discovered, and they were wearing these gigantic brass bangles.
Copper.
Went up their arms. Oh yeah, copper, not brass.
Copper. Mm.
Yeah, gigantic copper bangles up their arm, hammered copper. And a massive adorning necklace made of hammered copper, and tons of beads.
Mm.
And now, this was in our history books whenever I was in school. We were taught this in West Virginia history. And then around the year 2000, those history books were replaced, and none of that information was contained in the books any longer. Now, why would the government want to cover up something like this?
Ancient aliens.
I mean, maybe Bigfoot, maybe ancient aliens, maybe it would force they think for whatever reason it would force some kind of a religious philosophy over another. I mean, there's so many wild reasons, but like, I just can't wrap my mind around why would you actually have this information, record the data, then say it doesn't exist?
Well, when I say ancient aliens, I don't mean that's what it was. I mean, ancient aliens, exposure. People started to actually pay attention. They started to ask questions. They started to actually want to know about those old legends. And you can look those legends up. This is not, in my opinion, this is the most silent and pathetic cover-up that exists. There's the ancient, newspapers are out there.
Yeah.
Just read them. They're there. I mean,
you can go to your local libraries and just pull them up.
they're there. You know, there's several really good books that have accumulated them all for you too. And if you don't believe those books, then by all means go and scour, newspaper.com, all those places. And they're there, guys. The only thing that they can use to discredit them is saying that, oh, well, those people were so dumb back then that they didn't know the difference between a mastodon, fossil. Because, I dig up mastodon fossils all the time.
All the time. I mean, every time I mow my daggone lawn, I've bent a blade.
I can't tell you how many times. Yeah. I mean, we used to have a really nice garden, and we would find artifacts all the time. You know what we never found?
Mastodon fossil?
Bone. Yeah, never. Nope.
Oh, man. See, it's every single time I mow the lawn here. It's awful.
Yeah. So, one of the really cool things at Wild and Weird Con last year is we had Emily come down, and she talked about the giants, and what an incredible presentation that was. And I really expected her to go in there and debunk the whole thing.
Same here.
And she pretty much lays on the table, all the data, and says, well, look, they say there's a cover up by the Smithsonian. Well, I won't say that there is, but here. And she proceeds to show you all this information where they have lost files. And, her assertion is that they lost the files, which I can see that. I mean, I can honestly see that. We're talking about files that are hundreds and hundreds of years old, Bub. I mean, no one knows what's in those storehouses. No one knows what's in those drawers anymore. The keepers have died, and they probably forgot to even tell people. I mean, there's probably keys lost at this point, No amount of digging. I don't even know how long it would take to dig through those archives. They're there, in my opinion, yes.
Yeah, they're there. There was, at one point, I believe that there was a whole bunch of stuff that was returned. Under the Bush presidency, there was a bunch of artifacts and First Nations remains that were returned to, and they were interned.
That was the Native American Graves Repatriation Act.
Yeah,
is when that went into effect. That's what you're thinking about, I think.
I just feel like, the discovery of, 7 to 10 foot skeletons, when the average height at that time was around, for an adult male, 5 feet? 5
to 5 was average.
That would kind of shake up things a lot, and completely change the history that is to be presented.
Well, especially if you have legends of them, right, Jess?
Yeah, and I mean, if this legend is true, then what else is true?
Yeah.
So
see, that's the biggest reason I think that
the problem.
There is a cover up, is because if this one is true, then what else is true, and then how many more people will we have looking into those possibilities, rather than just us kooks that run around out in the woods,
right?
And
chase down. You're definitely not going to teach children this in school anymore, because then you just have a classroom full of children finding out that there are giants hidden in the mounds, and that's gonna kind of shake up a few brains. So
absolutely.
I can see why they would probably remove that, just because they don't want the digging to begin. They don't want to create that spark in anyone's brain to start there and go forward.
Correct.
Yeah. See, and the funny thing is, I'll tell you guys a brief interaction between me and a Smithsonian employee during the early stages of making the book. So there's a guy who is on a lot of these Bigfoot pages and whatnot because he's a firm debunker, and he loves getting into the Smithsonian debate because he worked for the Smithsonian. I don't know what the guy did for the Smithsonian. For all I know, he could have worked the gift shop.
He's probably like a bone duster or something.
Something.
I think that's an official title.
Duster.
Yeah, it's an official title.
And
yes, bone duster.
He is vehemently argued me, and then I produced the USGS survey papers, the West Virginia Geological Survey papers, the Historic Record Survey papers, the excavation permits, the excavation findings that were actually, properly documented and written out by the excavation teams. And when I produced all that stuff, he was like, oh yeah, that's just all, stuff that could be made up and fake. That's all fraudulent stuff. And I'm like, I literally gave you like dozens of pages worth of actual USGS, West Virginia GS stuff and you're still going to poo-poo on it, that just means that you are dedicated to the lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that is. That's believing the lie full force.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's important. That's an important message that people should do. They should always.
He's got it on his shirt.
Always believe the lie. Here, I'll get it right in a minute. Here we go. There you go. Always believe the lie, guys.
Listen, are you going to believe me or your lying eyes?
Oh, I like that one too. No, it's true though. We get locked into this whole mythology that we create, don't we? I mean, well, I guess they created it and we decide to just perpetuate it in our brains, and we can't go any farther. It's the same thing we talk about all the time, these belief systems, you know, and pretty soon anyone who threatens that, you know, that's no, this is true. This is true.
Yeah.
The lie becomes the truth, you know, they have become the lie at that point. So yeah, dude, I totally understand it. I mean, the poor guy's probably so brainwashed with all of it that he just couldn't go beyond that, you know. Well, the only
it was really
explanation.
frustrating. Like,
yeah.
You
Does not compute.
Yeah, pretty
one of
much.
those kind of deals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. I understand.
All right, Ron. I know you've got an interesting one queued up.
Mine's not interesting at all. No one knows anything about Roswell. You know, I mean, but it is an interesting thing. You think you know everything about the Roswell incident, and it's important to understand the only reason we do know about the Roswell incident is because of Stanton Friedman. That story would have remained completely buried, pretty much, except for in the minds of a couple of old timers. And you know, the fact that he went in there and got it, and got these people to start talking and save the story. You know, that's the real reason. You know, that's kind of the reason why we do what we do too. You see. Hold up one sec.
Yeah, without us going out to preserve the story.
Keep talking, you're good.
Okay. Without us going out to preserve the story, a lot of these stories would just be lost. You know, if Jessi and Joe didn't travel to the LBL, there are so many portions of those stories that would just still remain as gospel.
Yeah.
Or would be remaining in a place of being hidden and obscured.
Yeah.
So the work that Stanton did with Roswell was just next level.
Yes, it was. And, you know, what it amounts to is everyone knows the story of the Roswell crash. And if you don't, you're probably lying or you're an alien. Okay.
Blinks this way.
Yeah, well, those kind of deals, you know. But anyway, the thing about the cover-up and why there's a cover-up, or I guess why there's alleged to be a cover-up, is the whole fact that, you know, something crashed in the desert. Mac Brazel was out there, the ranch owner, surveying his land. He comes across this debris field, and he picks up a little bit of the debris, takes it into town, and shows it to the sheriffs, and the sheriffs contact the airfield, and boom, that's pretty much where it's going to start, because, you know, they're going to grab hold of this thing, and the rest becomes legend. But what happened is, before they could go in there and get everything kind of shut down, was the local media got on it. And when the local media got on it, it made the papers, and that's that famous headline that you see, you know. And then, you know, the broadcast, you know, the many rumors regarding the flying disc became a reality yesterday when the intelligence office of the 509th Bomb Group of the 8th Air Force Roswell Army Airfield was fortunate enough to gain possession of a disc through the cooperation of one of the local ranchers in the sheriff's office of Chavez County. Yeah, okay. So you think,
it doesn't get more plain than that.
Yeah. It's pretty plain. It's pretty much, you know, okay, they caught one of these flying discs because, you know, they've been flying around now. This was 1947. This was July. Remember, guys, what happened in
earlier.
June? That's right. That was when the whole flying saucers were literally born. You know, that was the modern age and where it began. So that's great and good. And the next day, what happens? The next day, the story
Nothing to
gets
see
retracted.
here, folks.
Nothing to see here. General Ramey empties Roswell dish or saucer. I can't remember the exact thing now. I'm remembering all this by pretty much, memory at this point. I got a couple of notes here, but anyway. So here's what you don't know. What you do know is that Jessi Marcel is showed by a bunch of debris. He's told, to say that this is just, it's weather balloon. It's just weather balloon material. That's just all this was. It was just a crashed weather balloon. Nothing to see here, folks, like Joe said. And he poses for it, and you think that's it, right? Meanwhile, back in the real city of Roswell and the whole story of it, there are other things going on. Mike Brazel later the rancher ends up having a brand new truck or a vehicle of some sort. And he doesn't talk about it anymore. He won't talk about this incident to anyone. The next best part is when Glenn Dennis, the funeral director, gets involved. And he is where we get our date, by the way. This is where the official date for the Roswell event kind of comes in, because it was between the end of June and the middle of July is when I think that Mike found this wreckage, because he didn't really record it, or it hasn't really been settled. There's so many books and so many versions of this story, but we know somewhere between the end of June and the beginning of July. But Glenn Dennis says that it was on July 7th when he was contacted by the Roswell Army Airfield Mortuary Office looking for baby caskets. Okay? They had to be hermetically sealed. He even goes back and they call him back several times. And what's really weird is there's an incident, and Glenn ends up going to the base with one of the, I think there was a motorcycle accident, if I remember right. And he was taking the guy back to the base. And when he goes back to the base, he sees all this stuff. Everything's going crazy. There's trucks, there are people, there are flashing lights, And he's like, this is weird. He just kind of looks around. He sees like there's some crash debris. And you think, oh, there's been a plane crash, So he goes in and he just goes back to get some papers signed. And he's going to go get him a drink really quick at, the commissary and head back to town. But before he can do that, he is intercepted by several people who basically threaten him because he says something to them like, yeah, it looks like you had a bad crash or something like that. And the guy goes nuts on him and basically tells him, don't you say a word about anything or they'll be picking your bones out of the sand, and just completely threatens him. There's a whole lot more to it, and what's really fascinating about it, guys, is you can actually go out and you can get you one of these. That's it. Right. This stupid green screen, I swear. Let me try to get it again. I'll get it.
Put it in front of your body. There you go.
There it was. It's phasing in and out. Anyway, I'll hold it there.
We're trying to cover it up.
Cover this up.
I'll just hold it there and we'll superimpose it. But anyway, this is by Glenn. He wrote this in 1991, and he passed this out during the festival out there. Yeah, and it's really fascinating because it's his first-hand account of what he saw. I'm not going to go into it because it's really detailed and it's really fascinating. If you don't believe in Roswell or that there was a cover-up, get that, because that's going to tell you a little more than probably what you know already. The great part about this is that it still goes on to get covered up. This whole thing goes on to get covered up. And it's not until somewhere around close to the 50th anniversary of Roswell that it really starts blowing up, because this is when the disclosure project kind of gets off the ground. It starts actually working at that point. And there is a General Accounting Office audit that takes place, and they find mention of this incident. Well, now they do this big overhaul. They go in and they release this final report, or supposedly final report. And now it wasn't a weather balloon. So everybody was right. It wasn't a weather balloon. It never was a weather balloon. It was a top secret weather balloon. Basically, it was a Rowan Sunday weather balloon. It was designed to listen for explosions in the atmosphere, is what it basically was. It was a device that was connected to strings of high altitude balloons, and it had microphones. It was designed to float around. It was listening for Soviet sounds of explosions. So they were trying to see if anyone was testing atomic bombs, basically, is what it was. This was Project Mogul. And I remember this very well, guys. I was there, and I remember it very well. Literally overnight, everyone became Project Mogul experts. They had never heard the word until a day before. But literally overnight, they became experts. It was when I saw that I realized, and remember, this is the early days of the internet. Not Facebook. There was no Facebook. There were forums. And it literally spread like wildfire. They were desperate to just crush this belief, that, this was happening. So they went on to do that, and there wasn't enough. That was in 1994, I believe. And then 97, I think, was when the anniversary was. But whichever way, I can't remember which one it was. I think it was 97 was after, right? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think. Anyway, math's terrible. Don't worry about that. This isn't about math. So in 97, regardless, they had to go back and reinvestigate this mess because people are still talking about Roswell. They're still talking about aliens. They're talking about, these little beings that were recovered now. And, the whole mess is going on. We have alien autopsy. We have all that stuff, right? Yeah. So the pop culture has grabbed a hold of these things. And they thought, we're going to release this final report, Roswell, the final report. And we're going to crush this story finally, once and for all. Okay, so now, we told you it was this Project Mogul thing. All right, well, first we told you it was a weather balloon. That was wrong. We lied. We told you it was this thing that listening for, high atmospheric nuclear explosions, atomic explosions. Well, it wasn't that either. We were testing some really high jump platforms, and we had crash test dummies that we were pushing off of a balloon at, the edge of space.
Sounds plausible.
Because we had to figure out a way to cover up those bodies that were recovered. I, to this day, have no idea why we were putting crash test dummies in child coffins.
That had to be hermetically sealed.
That had to be hermetically sealed. Yeah. Oh, there's more to it than that, too, because he said that, the mortuary guy at the airfield, basically, he called and asked about, decomposition rates, what they could use if there had been animal predation. It's on and on and on. They really didn't know what they were up against out there. That was the thing. And, guys, this was all just, there was no cover up, though. This is all just an urban legend now, because urban legend is the new cover up. See, that's what.
Oh, that's the easy way to do it.
That's the easy way to do it. So, this never happened. So it's complete, it's a complete lie, and you should believe that.
Believe the lie.
Believe the lie.
Just think about what kind of panic would have been started in 1947 if this came out, that there are aliens and they are coming to Earth. They are entering our atmosphere and coming to Earth. The amount of panic that would ensue would be insane.
You're right.
Yeah.
But at that time, it's probably so easy to cover up something like this because you don't have the internet, you don't have forums, you don't have any way for people to spread information as quickly as they do.
Well, even your news was really localized back then as well, too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like even more localized than, we each have our own regional news papers that run, but back then it was like your little town had its own newspaper, and that's the circle of news you got, and it took weeks and weeks and weeks to get big news out.
Oh yeah,
it was so much easier to keep a lid on things. But if you didn't have somebody like the funeral director coming out and talking about this, you wouldn't know hardly anything about this incident.
That's right. And when Glenn came out, he's deceased now, But when Glenn had came out, he managed to get a few more witnesses to come forward. And Stanton had just, this massive case that he just opened up. He literally put Roswell on the map. Incidentally, it didn't happen at Roswell. I think that's kind of one of the important things we need to address. It really didn't. It happened in the little town near Corona, New Mexico. And, there's been multiple stories of multiple crashes as well. And this is where those things kind of converge, and you end up with the legend that you have now. But, another thing, Jess, is that, one of the recent admissions is that they covered it up because they were afraid that it was causing too much, it was too much chatter. And they were afraid that Russia was going to use this, or the Soviet Union, not Russia at the time. The Soviet Union was going to use this as a preemptive first strike ability. Like they would basically, we're going to fake some UFO stuff, and while everybody's talking about that, we're going to nuke you.
Yeah.
So that was one of the recent theories that for the cover up. But I don't think anyone believes for 1 second that what they said fell out of the sky out there, fell out of the sky. There's been a lot of stuff that has come forward from that. And supposedly there's been a lot of the crash debris at this point recovered from many different sites. And it's not ours, guys. And if it is ours, it's not ours from this time. So at least not 1947.
So Jessi?
Yes.
What's next on your list?
I think if you are game for it, how about we talk about some of the cover-ups in the Bigfoot world?
Oh, I'm down.
Yes, let's talk about some of those. So I'll start out with, so there is an ongoing kind of situation where people claim that they've sent in DNA or hair samples to DNA labs for testing, and that these samples mysteriously disappear in the mail, that they never make it to the labs. And there's a theory that the government is intercepting these packages and confiscating these DNA and hair samples before they can even make it into the hands of the technicians.
Yeah, that has been a pretty prevalent theory in the Bigfoot circle for at least the last decade.
Yeah, because people constantly ask, "Oh, why is there no DNA? Why do you have no DNA samples?" And then it's, I guess, whether it's happening or it's not happening, or it's a convenient answer, it's because these things are theoretically getting intercepted by government officials.
Yeah, and the USPS is a government organization, but how would they know what it is, like, unless you told them? Like, I know that there was I can't remember who it was. Actually, I think it was Ken from up in Vancouver, Ken Walker. He sent some feces.
Mm-hmm.
Now, luckily, he had kept a large sample of it in his own freezer.
Yeah.
But he had sent multiple samples of possible alleged feces of a Bigfoot, and none of it reached its destination. Now, that might be because it's illegal to send poop through the post office. It's
not like you put a stamp on a turd. I'm sure he put it in a box,
Sure, right.
What?
Yeah.
Is it illegal to send poop through the mail?
I don't know. I guess we're gonna have to ask the Wild and Weird Radio legal department.
I need to know this.
I'm gonna get flagged now. I'm gonna be on another watch site because of this.
You guys want to know this too, right? The audience says yes, they want to know.
The audience wants to know. We're gonna have that graphic.
Oh gosh.
The more you know.
I don't. First off, I just want you guys to know. I hope we're not cutting any of this out.
No, go ahead.
Oh, this is too priceless.
Is it illegal to send? Is all I got typed in.
Okay.
The very first thing in the Google search menu is poop in the mail.
Megatron.
Okay. So that means this is a frequently searched question.
Or Megatron.
You're going to find out.
Popular activity.
Sending poop in the mail is not illegal. So yeah, and
Okay, stop. Just for a second. I want to put a disclaimer here because it needs to happen now. We are not responsible nor liable if you decide to send poop through the mail.
hold on, wait a minute, guys. You got it. Here's a new one. Welcome to the world that Wild and Weird Radio exists in. This also came up. This is the first descriptor. It says under, is it illegal to sell poop and send it in the mail? If you're really healthy, you can sell your poop to sick people who need it for as much as $13,000 a year. I'm quitting my job. I'm just going to sell my feces.
New business plan.
Go Perdue, turd salesman.
All right, so we've established that it is not illegal to mail poop.
That's what we do here, guys. We do the hard
We answer
work.
the hard questions.
So it is perfectly legal to mail poop. So that's not why it's getting flagged, but it would still have to be like opened up to begin with. But this stuff never reaches the lab, or if it does reach the lab, it mysteriously disappears. That's another portion of this. Is that if it reaches the lab and the results are being sent out somewhere along the line, suddenly the results don't exist anymore and the analysis is gone. All the data is pulled, and it's like this sample was never reviewed in the first place. So there's quite a few. And when I say quite a few, I know of 3 accounts. So to me, that is quite a few that are recent that have a very similar storyline. So what's your theory on that?
I think when they were talking, Mabel Ketchum, when she was doing her DNA study, even said that after it got out what she was doing and compiling all of these samples and everything, that that she was being watched as a result of that. And the samples stopped coming in after a certain period of time. People would contact her and say that samples are coming in, and they would never arrive. So word got out what kind of project she was up to. And so her address was flagged, perhaps. And this could be the same with these other people. If it's found out that they're actually doing DNA testing on possible Sasquatch fecal matter, hair, blood samples, then that would be flagged, and then subsequently any packages that come that way would be checked out, confiscated, lost.
Well, checking about the blood, one of the ones that was famously lost was the blood sample that Jeff Meldrum collected there out in, I think that was also out in Vancouver, Canada. And it was on the, during the Legend Meets Science documentary, the first one, back in, I think that was 2000, I believe, was when that was released. But anyway, they had retrieved DNA from a nail trap that was used to keep bears. Basically, it's a rug you put out in front of your home.
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
And you put nails through it, and it keeps grizzlies. It's a grizzly bear deterrent. You put that at your windows, at the base of your windows, and at your door. And when the bear steps on it, it's like, oh, ow, and goes and steps back away. It kind of keeps it from breaking in your door and breaking into your cabin while you're away.
This was at a remote fishing camp, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and the bears would notoriously, when you leave the camp for the winter, and you leave it unattended, and bears would notoriously break into camps and just destroy them looking for any kind of scrap of food. So they would put these boards with nails or screws in them on the outside of any doors and windows to deter that.
Exactly. Well, they had turned up on a night that they had Bigfoot activity, and a night that they weren't at the cabin, and they had heard knocks and sounds and whatnot. They went back and checked one of the traps that were accidentally set out. They didn't mean, it wasn't in a normal place. It wasn't by the door, I don't believe. And this is, I'm just recalling this from memory, but it had been stepped on and there was blood left behind, and they had sent the DNA in for testing, and whatever happened to the rest of it, like the initial sample came back inconclusive, but they had collected more samples, and those samples have been lost. They don't know what happened to them. They just disappeared because all of it had to be shipped back. And upon it being shipped back, that's when those other samples just never arrived at their final destination.
So that, I mean, it's a total possibility that this is happening, that there's so many incidents that are recorded of this happening, people having, reports of it happening. Another kind of Bigfoot thing when it comes to cover-ups, not that there's not a litany of them, is
there's a whole list.
There is a lot of discussion and stories and accounts of people claiming that government agents have come to them after they've had a Sasquatch encounter and are actually threatening them, that if they talk about their encounter, that bad things will happen to their families, that they're in danger, that they didn't see a Sasquatch at all, they saw a bear. And they would try to tell these people, you don't tell anyone what you saw. And if you do tell someone what you saw, we will come after you with the full weight of the U.S. government in very dark and nefarious ways. So one of the stories that seems to keep popping up is, so you know how with the UFO phenomenon, you have the men in black that show up. This is kind of a similar concept. This is called the men in Plaid. And there's several witnesses who claim that they had a Sasquatch encounter and that two gentlemen came to them. One was a large biker type guy who was always in plaid, and he was kind of the bad cop of the situation. And the other guy was more clean cut, in shape, wore more polo tack pants kind of thing, and looked more like a clean cut, good
professional
of the situation. And these two individuals will come and threaten people who had these encounters. And there's lots of people who claim to have seen this duo after they've had an encounter.
Well, one of these encounters actually took place an hour and a half north of Ron. And it's an encounter that Ron and I listened to on Wes's show, Sasquatch Chronicles, about a gentleman who had a run-in, and it was his brother or his brother-in-law were injured by one of these creatures while they were out on a fishing trip up on a lake near the Youngstown area. And this was over on the Ohio side. And basically they were visited in the hospital by these guys, and there were, I think, 2 or 3 other visits total. But the biker guy was always one of the ones that was mentioned. Like there was a good cop, bad cop scenario where it was very much implied that this guy back here will take care of you if need be. So, we've got some of those cases that have taken place kind of close to home for us. And now those types of encounters, we've never had a witness report those. And we've got very public witnesses too at this point. So like it's one of those things where, like, I wonder what specifically has to take place during one of these encounters to warrant the visit.
Yeah. What is different about their encounter from others where people report everything?
Well, I know that the one up north from us was it's a very physical encounter. The guy's clavicle was broken, had some broken ribs. Basically, he got charged and body checked.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, he had physical damage, came in very close physical proximity. And then this story also ties into another popular Bigfoot conspiracy theory that goes right along with the men in plaid, but it's also these death squads.
The kill teams.
Because this individual claims that he went back to the lake later that day with his high-powered rifle, going to exact revenge on this thing that hurt his brother-in-law or brother, whichever one it was. And when he got there, there were large Jeeps and Humvees that had kind of blocked off the main access gate to the water, what's it called? The little dock area. They'd blocked it off, and he saw black helicopters flying off around the island that was where this incident took place. And he's under the impression that they mowed everything down there.
And that there's actual teams going out and executing clans of Sasquatch, and that's why they're in danger, and the population is so low because the government sends out these kill teams to annihilate the Sasquatch after incidents.
Yeah, I could see it. If I didn't want you to know, that was really you, I would do the same thing.
Todd Standing, actually, have you ever heard his story where he talks about that he's been out on the mountain and he's seen boot prints and thought that was strange that somebody came up there because it's so remote. And then in the middle of the night heard helicopters and, heard gunfire. And so he thinks that some kill team came into his area and actually annihilated a group of Sasquatch.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna do it, technically that is the way to do it. It makes sense for it to be at night, not during the day, because you would want to use the thermal optics to be able to mark your targets and mow them down with the good old trusty Bert. So, that would make sense. Some of the ones I've heard were daytime kill squads going out and worrying about during the daytime. The nighttime operation makes way more sense from a military strategic standpoint. Then there's also some of the kill squad stuff that was revolving around in Kentucky. I don't know if you're familiar with this case or not, but there was a encounter right outside of Fort Knox, right off the base. And this was back, I think it was just post-Vietnam era. And there was a guy there that had an encounter, came back, told the story on base. Everybody made fun of him, joking, laughing. He was hell-bent on collecting evidence, and he went back out to the area. And when he went back out to the area, there was an entire elite force out there that were just mowing down this forest with just this hellfire barrage, and allegedly killed several Sasquatch. And one of them was right in front of him, and he saw the body, and it was a deathbed confession that he had given.
So maybe the government knows something about the Sasquatch way beyond what any of us know, like the level of danger they present to people, or perhaps the danger of the idea that they exist to people. What's more dangerous, their existence or the knowledge of their existence?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's more the knowledge of their existence, because look at all the political action groups we have. For example, we have PETA, we have Greenpeace, we've got Born Free, all these animal activist groups that start off pure in motive and in concept, but just go absolutely bonkers off the rails to the point where they're assassinating people. Or almost assassinating people, right, and getting caught doing it. How much more so would it be for a possible human relative?
Yeah.
If it's discovered that we now have these species that live among us in the forest that are related to us, and now you have all these activist groups that are trying to protect them, and they start getting really rowdy, just like the other groups.
Or the logging industry is completely destroyed by the protection of their habitat.
I mean, we've seen what happened with just two different species of bird, an owl and the ivory-billed woodpecker. It completely, just the possible sighting of one of those
shut it down.
Completely shuts an operation down.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, if you had a Bigfoot sighting, imagine what kind of a space that would, if the public was aware of a Bigfoot and they had mapped and charted out a migratory range that they lived in, and now this whole range has to be protected. You're talking like homes can't be built there. You're talking no roads, no logging.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be, basically they turn into wildlife management areas.
Yeah. And then also think about the circus that would surround, if it was ever absolutely 100% disclosed that they exist in this area. Right now, it's just crazy people like myself and you guys that go out into the woods and look for these. But can you imagine the absolute circus that would result in that kind of disclosure? Our national forest would be overrun completely with people trying to track them down, some trying to hunt them down. So it's, it would just be bedlam. And the same thing with the UFO phenomenon. If there was like pure disclosure about Roswell, think about just the people that would descend upon the area. as a result of it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, of course, the thing that always got me about the whole conspiracy with that, and that this is where I came up with my idea that Bigfoot may actually be early humans. And where I came up with that was because, well, the only thing that makes any sense is if you're trying to absolutely eradicate a record that you don't want discovered. Because, the other stuff, it's like, well, this is a new species. Let's just relocate this thing. Let's take it somewhere. Let's study it. No, we're just going to go and destroy it.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. The only reason you would do that is if you were trying to really eradicate more than just a species, but eradicate whatever that species stood for or whatever knowledge that may be gleaned from that species. It also could indicate that anyone could possibly pull that, not just scientists, not just regular, not just labs is what I'm getting at. So that means you, me, anyone else could go out there, get a blood sample and have it analyzed, if it wasn't intercepted, I guess.
Yeah.
But, so why would you do that? Why would you destroy an entire area? Think about it. I mean, that's to cover up something really big. Really big.
Yeah.
So
it would
I don't know.
It would have to. I think it would probably be somewhere along the same lines as why so many are hell-bent on keeping the UFO topic muted, is because it does sort of rewrite history to a degree. And I can see where people, especially now, being a step back and away from religion, and looking in the window now and seeing the way things work from the outside, I can see how it would absolutely rip some people within the church and organized religion. It would rip them to shreds because it would
shatter
basically
their world,
shatter their paradigm.
Yep. You're
So
right.
guys, do we have any final thoughts on government cover-ups and conspiracies? I think mine is going to be, that there's just so many things that are unknown and uncontrollable, and that these things that we know are real now are just the tip of the iceberg. And the government or whatever higher entities we have cover them up because they want to continue nefarious activities, or they want to stop a possible panic and cover up what history actually has to tell.
I like your take on that, because that's something I always used to say was, well, maybe there's a reason for the cover up. There's always these people who are like, we demand to know, we need to know, we have the right to know, we have blah, blah, blah. Maybe you don't. Maybe there's a deal that was made that says we don't know and we can't know. And if we know some of this stuff, that might be the trigger point to say, you know what? Let's annihilate them now. So, sometimes the bigger secrets might be worth keeping for all we know. I don't know. What I do know is that cover-ups are real. Sometimes they're necessary, and sometimes they're exactly what you said. They're for power. They're a power play.
My takeaway from all this is that, one, there will be another episode where we cover more government cover-ups, because this really is, like Jess said, the tip of the iceberg. We just barely touched on it, and there's so much more, I believe, to some of these government cover-ups than what we can currently wrap our minds around. Reasonings beyond what would currently make sense to us, because there, like Ron had said, there might be some clandestine organization or clandestine group that says, yeah, no, this doesn't need to be out, because if it does, then it could have some serious implications to worldwide society. So with that, we just got to look at things and don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't swallow the pills. Look at everything and read between the lies. That's the best. That's my big takeaway is if we drink the Kool-Aid, we can get way, way, way out there. But if we read between the lies, we're going to have our best chance at finding the answers.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. Don't drink the Kool-Aid unless you put tequila in it.
Then drink away. Well, Jess, take us home.
All right, guys. If you guys have any cool stories of government cover-ups that you really enjoy or you find particularly fascinating, please do not hesitate to get in touch with us via Facebook, email. All of our little contact information is on wildandweirdwv.com, or you can go to Facebook, contact us directly, or join the group on Facebook and make a little post and discuss it there. Or more importantly, go to the forum. Go to the forum and make sure you sign up. Join the collective, and let's have a lot more discussions on government cover-ups, and let's bring these subjects to the light. You can follow me at hellbentholler.com, on Instagram at hellbentjessi, or you can go to youtube.com/c/hellbentholler. I do have my LBL series out and started part 1, and part 2 is coming soon. And I'm hoping to blow the lid off of a cover-up in the land between the lakes with this series. So keep an eye out for more on that. You can find Joe Perdue at Skinwalker Sculpt on Instagram. You can find Ron at Lanham Ron on Instagram and check out all of his cool jewelry that he is making with tons of neat crystals. And make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure if you're listening to this on a podcast aggregator that you download the episode in addition to listening to it. Every one of these things helps us every bit of the way, and we really appreciate you all listening and joining in the conversation and being a big part of Wild and Weird Radio.
And remember, we love the like, shares, and subscribes. We would hate for you to become part of a Wild and Weird cover-up for not like, sharing, and subscribing. So, to avoid that, it's real easy. Mash that button. Right now. I'm watching.
We got eyes on you, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Stay wild and weird, guys.